That is right, you read the title. It is Christmas Day, and we are going bells deep inside Raid Shadow Legends. You'll be seeing this tomorrow, though, on Boxing Day. I had a video go out live already today, so I decided I'm going to record one today, put it up for tomorrow. That is dedication, ladies and gentlemen. What are we doing? I am going to be pulling this festive deck of fate so that I can go ahead and get myself the new, free, guaranteed legendary champion that's been introduced into the game that I think a lot of players will be able to get, especially if you've been saving resources and being smart about how you're managing your account. I have enough points to go ahead and get this guy, and I did not spend a single cent on this, so this was pretty fantastic. And as you guys saw in my last shard opening video, which was for the summon rush of this very same fusion for Lady Noelle, I managed to pull every single one of my shards. So it wasn't like I was just depending on shards or anything like that. It's all about the resource management. It certainly helped that I got Sir Nicholas during this event. That gave me quite a few additional points. In case you're curious, my Lady Noelle fusion is now complete as well. So I have Sir Nicholas, I have Lady Noelle, and we're about to get Mr. Krampus or BELZ himself. So let's go ahead and let's start opening some of these cards here. And we're hopefully going to get some additional bonuses for getting 3 of the same color. We're doing pretty well so far. And we reset back to green, which is a bit of a shame. I did, excuse me, I definitely liked when we had, I think it was maybe the Freya Deck of Fate event, where they allowed you to essentially just pin one of the rarities, right? And then you could try and match that rarity. I think that was done incredibly well, because as you can see, we're kind of getting screwed here on the random matchups, which is a bit of a shame. 19 more cards to go. I have enough points to open this entire deck of fate anyways, which I will in fact be doing because I want some of the additional goodies that we might get from it. So there is some decent stuff in here, like you can see an XP barrel, and then of course champion fragments and oils and, you know, gear removal tokens and all that sort of stuff, which is very useful actually. I found myself using a lot of those gear removal tokens when Hydra reset rolls around, just so I don't need to worry about spending all of my hard-earned silver on it. We get a purple matchup, which is quite nice, and we do actually get a feast, which is actually pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. I do like that. That's a good drop. So that's essentially the same as getting, what would it be, like 5-star chickens? Because that can just take somebody to level 60, or rank 6 rather, immediately, which is pretty cool. So if I come in here and take a look at, like, for example, Samar, who's at level 5, of course, rank 5, I can take him up, or I can also use the feast on Rizkarm, who's at rank 3, and it immediately takes him up as well, which is pretty cool. So we got the champion. I should have probably waited until the champion chase was going on, because I was talking about being smart with your resources and whatnot. But let's go ahead. Let's take a look at him. I guess I haven't summoned them yet, so I just got the fragments for him. The fragments are just chilling here. I can summon those during champion chase if I really want to. More realistically, what is probably going to happen, and what I'd recommend you guys do, is save those fragments for the next champion chase from the next fusion that comes. So at this point, it is obviously going to be next year, sometime in January, and we're probably going to have a decent champion to go along with it. The last couple fusions have been kind of, you know, borderline, so Raid tends to like to spice things up and add some really good fusions in there at some point. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about this guy, though, why I went for him and what I think he's going to be good at. So first of all, he looks absolutely fantastic. He's got the eyeballs on his bag there at the back, which, if there's any Berserk fans in here, this might remind you of the Bailet, like it does for me. That's very much the vibes I get from this, so that's pretty cool to see. He's got like a crown on the back there, just kind of, you know, the regular Christmas attire that you'd expect from somebody who's like the Grinch, right? What does he do? He's an HP-based damage dealer, so he attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance of placing a decreased defense debuff for 2 turns, will ignore 5% of the target's defense for each debuff on them. This is actually pretty huge, because this is a good land rate of the decreased defense. There's very few champions that can place it at a very good clip on an A1. The one that swings to mind is Aphidus, the mythical that I just got, who does it just guaranteed, but again, he's a mythical champion, right? And then more importantly, ignores 5% of the target's defense. So if we go ahead and if we think about Hydra, right, where it seems like this guy's really going to shine, a Hydra battle, you're going to have generally, at minimum, I would say about 4 debuffs on the enemy team, which this is going to stack up to 20% defense ignore. That's on top of any Helm Smasher procs, lethal sets, whatever you might be in, right? So that is pretty strong. A2 Attacks one enemy before attacking, steals all buffs from the target. So this is going to be useful for Hydra once again if they steal your buffs or if they happen to get past that block buffs, right? We'll repeat the attack against all enemies if the initial target is under a leech. Now this is potentially insane. I haven't looked at this guy's multipliers yet. It's on a 3-turn cooldown inside Raid Shadow Legends if you're not very familiar with it. Champions that do conditional extra hits are oftentimes some of the strongest hits that we have in the game. A perfect example would be somebody like a Magnar, where if they're not under an HP burn, he hits them again, and he's a very strong, epic, HP-based nuker. There's other champions as well that do conditional extra hits, right? So, for example, Thor, where he's attacking everybody in a random order. He's then getting around all sorts of AoE damage mitigation, so he's incredibly strong. We have Sun Wukong, where if he kills somebody with his A2, he spreads the surplus damage. And of course, we all know Sun Wukong. There's been many a times where I've essentially just one-tapped an enemy team with him because he is so incredibly strong. Finally, on his A3, we have Terra Breach, attacks all enemies. Has a 100% chance of placing a block buffs, and then he does also bring the leech on all enemies for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. He's also going to fill his turn meter by 5% for each debuff placed by this skill. So he places 2 debuffs. We place those on 4 enemies. That is 8 debuffs, which means that he's going to get a chunky little, what is that, 40% turn meter fill, if I'm not mistaken. So that is very, very strong, right? So he's almost getting himself halfway to another turn, which is pretty crazy. March of Reckoning passive, he's going to increase his max HP by 5%, which stacks up to 50%, which might not sound like much, but you consider that this guy is coming in with a base HP of over 23,000. He's going to scale very, very well. I'm going to compare him real quick to the other HP-based nuker I use, which is Taurus, and Taurus actually has 1,000 less base HP than him, which is pretty crazy, and I think less base defense as well, right? So if this guy has good multipliers, he can definitely smack. So he's increasing his own max HP and crit damage by 5% for each debuff placed by this champion. This could be very, very strong, especially if you run him with the right blessings. So immediately I'm thinking of like Nature's Wrath, right? Because this guy is coming in and placing a decent amount of debuffs. His passive is going to stack up incredibly quick, right? Because he only needs to place 10 debuffs to get his passive fully cracked out. And that's going to go quick when you have 2 coming in here and then 1 coming in here, right? So a few turns, and this guy already has 50% more HP, and then he's also got a bunch more crit damage on top as well. And he does actually have a little bit higher than usual crit damage as well. If we look at a lot of other damage dealing champions, I believe they start at kind of around 50%. So no, maybe 63. Maybe I'm just, you know, crazy, but I thought it was 50. That could have been old school champions as well. I don't know. Let me know down in the comments. Maybe I'm just out of sync with how champions are being released these days, but he does look like an absolutely fantastic dude, and especially after the Hydra rework, I think this guy is going to be very, very cool to use. Somebody else pointed out that he could actually be very cool to end up using with, I want to say Undead Hordes is where he's at. Yeah. Mr. Salad here, right? So Mr. Salad is consistently bringing in the True Fear and Leech. So if you use this guy to set up the Leech, and then Mr. Grinch comes in with his A2 and gets that conditional AoE, I think that could be a very, very, very strong combination. I know there's some showcases on YouTube so far where they seem to think that he's doing some pretty good things, so I'm excited to try him out. I'd like to know if you guys went for him. Let me know down in the comments below. As always, thank you guys all so much for watching the videos. I wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and I hope you got some good gifts, and I'll see you next time.